Members of the Canadian women's national soccer team, they're testifying in Ottawa this afternoon about pay equity. Let's listen to them live.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to you, members of the women's team. A word for Ms. Sinclair. It's such an honor to meet you. I think that you represent all sports, probably the greatest athlete in Canada. And I'm thinking of, Michael Kingsbury. It could be, an open line discussion. But, when you ask yourself where women's soccer is in Canada and how far you've brought it forward. So you make us pride. And we salute you all for your courage, all of you. It is shocking for me to see that societal change unfolds in silence, especially in the world of sports. And you are models, I think, also for other sports federations, because you have shown unity within your team, within your movement. And I think that the statements you've made, especially with the U.S. women, have been striking. And you can count on us, and I believe all of my colleagues here, to support you in your demands. In fact, I would like to hear you speak a little bit more about what was presented today, or even as of last week. What is your foremost demand? Is it to obtain a work contract? Is it to negotiate a collective agreement? And what is your foremost objective in your negotiations? How can the lot of women's soccer players be improved? Thank you. Go for it, Quinny.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of objectives, and like Janine mentioned earlier, we're not just talking about pay equity, we're talking about equitable allocation of resources as well, and I think with our youth programming as well, that's not just equitable allocation of resources.
I apologize. I cannot hear the French interpretation. Sorry. Please go ahead. It's the interpretation. Could you continue? Yes. The interpretation is resumed.
For our youth programming as well. And so I think for us, it's making sure we achieve equity from a bunch of different levels. And then I think moving beyond that, we want to make sure Canada Soccer is in a place to make proper business decisions moving forward. And so I think from a governance perspective, it's something that needs to be addressed as well. And so those are a couple of the topics that are crucial for us moving forward.
Clearly, and I draw parallels with Hockey Canada governance challenges. Hockey Canada said they wouldn't negotiate in public, but in a way, this is the chosen path given the intimidation, and I think this has been very embarrassing. Since 2018, Soccer Canada has had a strategy to explain that agreements with Canada Soccer Business and Rebuilding Soccer Canada, and given the documents distributed, indicate they've succeeded. Yet today, we see that Soccer Canada continues to attack women players. What needs to be done as of now to achieve more equality and better gestures? What can Soccer Canada do? What can the minister do? What can we do as MPs? And what can your association do?
I think the first thing that we need is to rebuild the trust with our association. They have, on multiple occasions, broken our trust, and in my opinion, a statement as put out today is another indication of a difficult place that we've been put in to trust them. The number one thing we've asked for is transparency of finances. We're still unclear of any finances past 2019, and prior to that is important, but especially over the last 3 years, we need to know what's been going on in the finances in order to negotiate a collective bargaining agreement that makes sense for them and us. And for the last 12 plus years, we have been negotiating in the dark. And that makes things very difficult for us because, as we stated before, imagine the shock when we hear what they've been able to pay our men's team when we've been just, bargaining in good faith for 12 years. And then I think the next thing that we need is, like Quinn said, systems of all kinds of things in place in order to make sure that this change is lasting and that there's accountability in place for whoever is in the leadership at Canada Soccer, that we don't continue to take steps backwards in 2023 in a place where we live in a country that we can be a shining beacon of hope for women's teams, federations all over the world, for what can be possible in football. And I think that's one of the main things, is how can we put these structures in place to have lasting change.
When I listen to what you present to us,
that is members of the Canadian women's national soccer team testifying in Ottawa right now. This is amidst an ongoing labor dispute with Canada Soccer about pay equity issues and budget cuts. We're hearing from players like Christine Sinclair, Janine Becky, Sophie Schmidt, and Quinn talking about equity and long-lasting change. We'll keep a very close eye on the testimony in Ottawa today.